Carter Elliott, it's good to see you in your Honolulu blue. Victory Monday? Is that what today is?
The only team that's currently bringing me joy in my life. Who would have thought?
Hey, at least you got one, my friend. That's more than I have right now. I guess I got one. I'm a Lions fan too, but doesn't feel that way. Let's talk about Michigan. We're not going to do a regular starting five topic episode this week, partially for the sake of time, partially because we only have two things we really want to talk about. So we're going to break them out into individual segments. But the first one is Michigan. And we came on here a week ago and said definitively this team is bad at basketball. This week, Michigan played Virginia. They played Kentucky. I thought it was two of their better games of the season. Both were extremely competitive games. Both were winnable games. And they lost both. That's hard to square for a team that needs a resume win, as you noted on Twitter yesterday. But oddly, I think Michigan fans would say they feel a little better about this team after this week. At the same time, the results are getting worse. They've gone from 5-1 to 5-3, and they're very lucky they escaped the Ohio and the Eastern Michigan games with wins. Otherwise, this team would be in big trouble right now. Speaking of big trouble, their transfer point guard roulette loss, Jaelin Llewellyn, looks like he may be out for the season. I'm speculating. I have not heard anything definitive on that. He was seen in crutches at the end of the game, but there's a lot of people who have experienced a quote-unquote torn ACL that are like, we knew what that was immediately when we saw it. It was a non-contact injury. It looked horrible. So our thoughts and prayers, our best wishes, all that go to Jalen Llewellyn. As much as I make fun of him and how bad he has played, I don't wish that upon anybody. But Michigan's not in a position they can lose their starting point guard right now. And even if he's been playing really poorly, that's a pretty big loss. So turning point for Michigan season sort of feels like we're here right now. Do you think it's still fair to say what we said a week ago? Michigan is definitively bad after seeing them hang with Virginia and Kentucky, both top 7 teams on KenPom. Do you still feel this team is definitively bad?
Yes, because I think the two main points of this team is that they can't shoot and they can't play defense. And I don't see that changing. It might change with more Doug McDaniel minutes because I think he is a scrappy defender. Yeah, he's small, but he's scrappy. And he's a guy that takes pride in defense. So, but he's not a guy who's a shooter. So this whole season is basically going to be predicated on the fact that you need all guys to get hot like they did at the Virginia game to have a chance. And that seemed more like a flash in the pan type situation than a situation that's going to be kind of, spread out a trend through the year. So, I mean, I still think it's fair to say this is a bad Michigan basketball team. And I think it's going to stay that way. I think like you said, the Llewellyn injury, though he wasn't playing well, that hurts.
Yeah.
Like who's your backup point guard now?
Kobe Buffkin. That's it. I mean, here's the truth though. Like there's a lot of back and forth that I've sort of seen just immediately of this of like, damn, really, really hurts Michigan. They don't have an extra guard, huh? There's not a ton of teams in the country that could survive a torn ACL to their starting point guard and just like be fine immediately. Like I don't view that as a roster mismanagement issue. I view that as you can't lose your starting point guard and survive that. Like Michigan State's in a very odd situation where they have essentially 2 guys who can be a starting point guard and a backup point guard and a shooting guard who can also like that's insanity. So Kobe has been the half court creator more than Llewellyn has been anyway. I don't think that's necessarily going to hurt them. Doug's going to have to play 25, 30 minutes minimum now. And on some nights, 35, 40 minutes. And that's scary. And we can talk more about that in a minute. I want to push back on your shot. This team can't shoot thing though. I still agree with that. Like, I think they're bad shooters in general, but all of a sudden you lose one of the bad shooters in Llewellyn. I don't know if that makes the team shoot a little better.
Replace him with maybe a worse shooter.
I would argue Doug's not a worse shooter. And I know that sounds crazy, but Doug came off the bench immediately and hit an off the dribble 3 when people were sagging under that I've not seen Llewellyn hit this year. Doug has attempted a lot of off the dribble shots this year. Have they gone in? No. But again, I have a lot of thoughts on like what Doug could be when you shift mentally what his role is. And I'll get to that in just a moment. But Point is, Virginia, Kentucky games, Cart. Michigan shot 42% from three, 8 for 19 in the Virginia game. And then they followed that up with 40% from three, 8 for 20 in the Kentucky game. That's good enough to win those games. The problem is Virginia shot 50% from three, only 4 for 8, but 50% from three, wins by 2 points. Kentucky shot 60% from three, 9 for 15, wins by 4 points. If they shoot 50% from three, they lose that game. So it's hard for me because I think Michigan's proving they're a team that plays up and down to competition a little bit. And I think defense is the larger problem right now than offense. I don't know that Michigan's going to shoot 40% from three every game. I do think losing Llewellyn is going to help that because I think Llewellyn was the largest issue with their spacing. I don't think he was a threat at all. Kobe, I trust his shot more than I trust Llewellyn's off eye test. Like, Kobe made one yesterday. He's been good at getting to the rim. I'm excited about the prospect of him needing to do more from a facilitation standpoint because I think the concept of Kobe being the pick and roll guy, the creator with Hunter surrounded by quote unquote shooters, I like that better than I like whatever Llewellyn was trying to do on the court. The problem is I don't know where Doug McDaniel fits in now, and I don't know who the shooters are off the bench. Isaiah Barnes came in, hit 2 threes yesterday. He's been in and out of rotations. DNP's one game, and then all of a sudden he's in. Joey Baker only played 9 minutes yesterday, attempted 1 3. So I think it's defense. Like, I think they just hate what they're seeing from Joey Baker defensively, but that doesn't apply to Jet. You got to hate what you're seeing from Jet. And
hey, if Joey's last name was Howard, he'd still be in the game.
I don't know what Joey has to do to get more minutes because we need shooters on this team, but I don't know. I don't know where they go. Let's do the Doug Jaelin thing though. So my stance on Doug has been he's been a train wreck this season, and I'm a big Doug McDaniel guy long term. I love him. He has had a ton of opportunities to rightfully win the job from Jalen Llewellyn already this year. And I truly think he would. I came on this program like 2 weeks ago and said we're about a month away from Doug just taking the job. I still believe that would have happened at some point. The problem has been, to me, every time Doug's on the floor, he's trying to make the home run play. And we kind of heard this even before he got in a Michigan uniform. It was like, that's the MO of Doug McDaniel. Like he swings for the fences, he goes big or goes home, and he makes a lot of mistakes because of that. But that hasn't worked. Like, he comes in for 4 minutes a game. He tries to do the most spectacular things he can do in 4 minutes. And he'll always have 1 to 2 brilliant plays and then 3 to 4, like, what the hell are you doing, dude? You're an idiot plays. And I would like to think that's because he knows he's only playing for 4 minutes and he's trying to do the spectacular in that role to win a job. I would like to think that the good parts of Doug McDaniel, where he sees the floor better than Jalen Llewellyn does, he makes better pick and roll reads than Jalen Llewellyn does already, immediately, as a 19-year-old kid or how old he is. I would like to think that defensively, his ability to be a pest and go for steals and be aggressive and lead with energy on that side can translate into a 30-minute role where it's like, okay, you don't need to hit a home run every time now. Just lead the team. I think that's possible because if you took just the good parts of Doug McDaniel and like cut the bad parts in half, he's a pretty good player and they can survive with him at starting point guard. Do you think that that's possible, like mentally, or do you think like Doug is just the train wreck that he is and now we're going to get 30 minutes of that instead of 5 minutes of that?
No, I really don't think so. And it's not just comparing him to Llewellyn, and I feel bad kind of shitting on Llewellyn's game right now in light of him coming off that injury, but just because we have to look at it like in a head-to-head kind of basis. I mean, could Doug really do much worse than Llewellyn?
Yes and no, because the problem, Llewellyn wasn't going to do anything to lose you a game other than miss shots and be all around horrible. But like,
I know I just have a hard time coming to grips with the fact that a player who's trying to do too much and out of control, who's, to me, just speaking on past experience and what I've seen when it happens with other players, typically when you have a player that's out of control and like wants to make more plays, giving them more rope and kind of more opportunities, I would say more times than not doesn't lead to them settling down and taking a step back and realizing they don't have to do that anymore. It's more so now they have 30 minutes to unleash dickheadness. Like that's what it is. And quickly to touch on the point, because I do want to say something about Kobe. I think that Kobe, for all that I shitted on him like early in the year, I actually, it's credit to what you told me to do. Don't just watch Matthew Loves B-ball. Sometimes actually watch Michigan basketball games. I think that Kobe has improved from what I've seen. And coming out of high school, personally, I was extremely high on Kobe Buffkin, and the thought of him kind of being a playmaking wing. I don't know who would come to mind. I don't want to say Karis LeVert because that's just the first Michigan kind of playmaking wing type player that comes to mind. Could be somebody else, but a player who could actually make some plays out of the pick and roll. Doug McDaniel doesn't necessarily fit into that off the ball role. Like you have an undersized 2-guard kind of in like a Tyson Walker mold, but Tyson Walker shooting 40% from 3. And you got to check that, man. I don't know if Doug can do that. Shit, maybe we don't. Maybe Doug can be a pretty good spot up shooter. Who knows? I don't know. I haven't seen it yet this year, personally. So it's interesting to see. But the main issue is defensively with this team before we even get to what Doug is going to do. So if anything, I think Doug will improve you guys defensively. So maybe that's a plus in this situation.
Yeah. Doug has a 3 in 3 of his last 5 games. And again, he's played less than 20 minutes in all of these games, oftentimes like 9 minutes a game. 3 for 9 in that span. And it's all eye test. I buy that Doug will make shots. I don't think he's going to ever be a 40% shooter this year. Maybe that comes later, but like he's not a total non-shooter to me. Like most of the threes he attempts are off the dribble. Like guys are sagging, daring him to shoot. He immediately hit one right after he came in for Llewellyn. Cut, I think it was a 5-point lead to 2. Like he's willing to shoot, and the shot looks okay eye test to me. It's just it hasn't really gone in.
He ain't Xavier Simpson.
He's not Xavier Simpson. And again, we got to see how that translates to a bigger role, but I am excited about the prospect of what Doug can do immediately given this responsibility. And if it is a train wreck, it's a train wreck, but this team has nothing to lose at this point, right? Like they haven't beaten any good teams on their schedule. Right now, Pitt's their best win. That's a quality win. That's all we have right now. Pitt looks better than we thought. And we got to hang our hat on that. They play North Carolina in a little bit, who's losing to everybody they play. That looks like a must-win game. And they're going to have to do it without Jalen Llewellyn. So we'll see. I kind of feel like this is karma. Like all of my Jalen Llewellyn hate led to this. So I'm sorry, Jalen. I didn't want to see this happen, but here we are. All right, gun to your head, Cart. Does Michigan make the tournament?
No.
Does Michigan State make the tournament?
Yes.
Okay. I think we might see both teams miss the tournament, and I'm disgusted by that thought. But
who's the best defensive team in Michigan? Central, Western?
Not Eastern. I'll tell you that.
Eastern. It
might be Western. All right. We're going on our Big Ten road trip this week. We're going to Lincoln, Nebraska. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be on the Field of 68 network. Keep your eyes out. And if there's any
big win for the Huskers at Creighton. We're coming into a hype. I hope it's hype.
If there's any Nebraska fans out there, slide in our DMs. Let us know what we need to hit up on campus. But other than that, we'll see you next week.